Who wants to be part of a city that's dying and that isn't innovating and isn't doing things? And I think that if you live here, you should want to be all about it because people are coming, whether you like it or not. We either have to get ahead of it. If we don't, then you're going to get something by default and then the worst happens.
Today, we're talking about the 700,000 estimated people that are coming to Central Florida over the next several years and the 497-page planning document that's expected to guide that growth. But before we get into that, let's talk headlines from around the world of Orlando business. NBC Universal CEO Jeff Shell departed Comcast on April 23rd. Since January of 2020, Shell has been the public face of NBC Universal's theme park projects as the head of the media and entertainment division. Company officials said Shell's departure will not affect ongoing and upcoming theme park projects. And I would hope not, because last fiscal year, the division's global theme parks brought in a whopping $2.4 billion. Charlenbrock Architects is one of Orlando's best places to work and a Central Florida Fast 50 company. And it's recently become 100% owned by its employees by becoming an ESOP company. ESOP stands for Employee Stock Ownership Plan, and they're great for facilitating succession planning, which is exactly what Charlenbrock Architects is doing, as their founders move into roles of directors emeritus. Charlenbrock Architects got its start in 1981 and now has 110 employees. The Maitland firm has been involved in several high-profile projects, including the $50 million reimagining of Winter Park Village. If you're an entrepreneur, you know the power of outsourcing, and if you're in Winter Garden, you'll be able to outsource your kids' swim lessons this fall. Goldfish Swim School has broken ground on their second Central Florida location. The swim school will be directly adjacent to a 12,000 square foot Kiddie Academy daycare on West Colonial Drive. And according to the Orlando Business Journal, the school will add 50 new jobs to the area, which makes my capitalism-loving heart dance for joy. Great news for Verizon customers in Kissimmee. The company is boosting their 5G network with new infrastructure. Verizon said they would spend an additional $149 million to its local capital spending in Florida to meet the demands of population growth. And I think I speak for all of my friends over here in Horizon West. Bring us some of that sweet, sweet infrastructure over here. All right, that's it for headlines. Now let's get into our story of the day. And our guest today for this segment is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Ken Pozek. He's the founder of a media company called the Orlando Reel, and he's the team leader for the Pozek Group for Keller Williams, where he's helping clients from all over the world relocate to Central Florida. Ken did over $200 million in real estate sales last year alone. How did he do it? A huge part of his growth strategy for his business is media. He's killing it on YouTube with over 36,000 subscribers. Between his personal profile and his media brand, he's got over 28,000 followers on Instagram and over 30,000 on TikTok. He's on billboards across Orlando. He's all over my social feeds, and he even showed up in my mailbox a few weeks ago. Ken Pozek, welcome to Orlando Business, my man.
Man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm excited to have this conversation with you, Ken. So you had a post that popped off on Instagram the other day that was really intriguing to me, and it's about Vision 2050. So for those listening that aren't sure what that is, it's a 497-page planning document that is expected. It's not quite locked in yet, but it's expected to guide how and where growth is going to happen in Orange County over the next 3 decades. And you did an Instagram reel about this that had over 250,000 views on it. And there are a lot of interesting components to this, to your video, but also to Vision 2050 that I wanted to talk with you about today. And so, 700,000 new residents coming to Orange County. Your comment section, the folks in your comments, it made it very clear they do not want more people coming to Orlando. You have kind of an anti-take. I think you and I agree. But what's your take on 700,000 new residents coming to Orange County?
Man, I'm excited that we're growing. I think who wants to be part of a city that's dying and that isn't innovating and isn't doing things right? And I think that if the fact that the county's looking to make the right moves and have a plan in place and hopefully get the funding and then follow through on something like this to grow properly, I think is exciting. And I think that if you live here, you should want to be all about it, because if they just people are coming, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And so we either have to get ahead of it with more infrastructure, schools, business opportunities for people to move jobs here, and a lot of other really cool things like that. And if we don't, then you're going to get something by default. And I think anytime you go off of just what default happens and don't actually plan, then the worst happens. And so it was funny to me seeing all the people in the comment section be so anti-growth and so anti, like, hey, I got here first, because you probably know this by now, there's not a lot of people that grew up in Orlando. You know, it's a very transient area. A lot of people came here for school, came here for Disney or Universal, and then ended up leaving. And that's starting to change. And that's why we're seeing the growth that we are, because we're having people move here and then they don't leave. And so people are coming, and we want to make it as good as possible. And I want to be a part of it.
Yeah. One of the elements of this plan that you called out in your video was the plan includes moving from 50 units per acre of land to 100 units per acre of land, which means we're gonna be getting buildings going, higher instead of wider, and more population density. I think you called out like the I-4 corridor. And over by UCF, where are some other pockets of Orange County that they're really planning for this growth?
Yeah, it looked like they basically divided the city up into 4 sections that they saw the growth opportunities. So that was Lake Nona, downtown, iDrive, and then over by UCF. And so iDrive just got approved for the tallest building in Orlando. It's gonna be 36 stories. It's a hotel, but again, that drives jobs, and it drives more tourism and drives more convention work and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's a big one. I think Lake Nona is a big growth opportunity for people because there's still so much land over there. Tavistock's got land for days. They've got 17 square miles, and I think they've already built out 30% of it. So big opportunity there. And then, the UCF area, I think is because there's so many kids that go to school there, but there's also a lot of land out to the east that is really rural at this point.
Yeah. Lake Nona is where Disney corporate is going, right?
Yeah. Assuming that we don't have a political meltdown and they decided to back out. But as of right now, I mean, even just 2 or 3 weeks ago, they were still moving forward with plans and giving those to the county. And, they've got some design work already done. And so they're going to spend almost $1 billion on their new campus. And they're going to be relocating not just 2,000 jobs. Like originally the plan was 2,000 jobs. Now it sounds like it's going to be somewhere close to like 8,000 people that will eventually be over in the Lake Nona area with Disney. And so that's Imagineering, that's finance, that's a lot of people. And I hope that all continues.
It's incredible. One thing that you and I were talking about before we hit record here that I think will just be helpful if you're listening to this, and you're a business leader if you're listening to this, and so hopefully you see this growth as exciting as Ken and I do. But if for whatever reason you're on the other side of this, think about it this way. I was actually at a mastermind group a few weeks ago that they talked about this, and Ken brought this up independently. I thought it was funny that what he mentioned was the exact same thing that we talked about at this group that I was in. But if you are raising kids here in Central Florida and you want those kids to stay close to you whenever they're, they move on, they're out of the nest and they're on their own, why would you not want to be in a city that is thriving and growing where people want to be? Yeah. I was talking to a friend of mine who is from Kentucky, and he was like, man, I would love to be close to my family, but there's way more growth for my career, for my family in Orlando than there is where I was from in Kentucky. That is my story, being from Oklahoma. You being from Detroit, mention a similar story. So just consider that if you're wrestling with the amount of growth that Central Florida is going to see over the next 30 years, and wishing that people would just stay away. One, to Ken's point earlier, you were likely not from here. And so because this area is so transient, it's a little hypocritical to think that, I can move here, but everybody else has to stay away. I found it first. So
you just slam the door behind you. Yeah.
Any other takes on Vision 2050, Ken, before we close out this segment today?
Yeah, I just think, we have an opportunity right now to help shape some of this, right? So it's a kind of more of a guiding document than anything, but getting involved, talking to different developers, talking to your council people, talking to your representatives, explaining to them what we need, what we don't need. That's kind of the way that they're using a lot of this. The people that stand up and raise their hands and make their voice heard, that's how they're creating this document. They know we need more infrastructure for roads. That's an easy one. They know we need more affordable housing because that's just like a simple one. But anything else beyond that, you can't complain if you don't get involved. If you get involved and then you do everything you can and it's still, at least you tried. So that would be my encouragement to anybody, is that like, you're not alone. There's people that have similar voice to you, whether you love the growth or you don't like the growth, or you just think that we're going in the wrong direction. Make your voice heard. That's kind of what it's all about, community.
Ken, thank you so much for joining us today, man. This has been incredible. I really appreciate you.
Appreciate you having me.
All right, now it's time for my favorite segment where I talk about one of my favorite people, places, or things. And today I've got to tell you about my Olakai flip-flops. I often joke around and tell people that the way I'll measure the success of my life is by the number of days I didn't have to wear socks. But in all seriousness, my feet are in flip-flops for about 99% of my waking hours. So I've got to tell you about my Olakai flip-flops, a little pricier than the $5 Old Navy flip-flops that I used to rock for about a decade of my life, but worth every single penny. Think of a pillow for your feet, and that's basically what these wonderful foot cushions are. Try on a pair at a flip-flop shop near you, and you can thank me later. All right, folks, I'm James Carbary, and that's it for this episode of Orlando Business. It's brought to you by my next entrepreneurial adventure, Out of Office Orlando, a co-working content studio we're building in Winter Garden where you can create content, connect with other local professionals, take a dip in our lazy river, or get a lap in on our outdoor electric go-kart track. It's like a country club where you can work, and I really think you're going to love it. If you're interested in learning more, shoot me an email at james@sweetfishmedia.com or send me a DM on LinkedIn, whatever tickles your fancy. And with that said, I'm out.